Hey there gamers! Today we have a preview of Bloodwork. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Bloodwork by iDemoGames. Now this is a sponsored preview, this is also a prototype copy in front of me, so all rules, components, things like that are subject to change, and this is a GameFound campaign, so you can check out the link down below for everything that they have planned. Now, I do also want to note that there is going to be a gameplay on the channel as well, so I only have one of the characters here in front of me today, but if you'd like to see all four that start off with the base game, you can see them in that gameplay in action. And another thing to note for both the gameplay and this preview, these are painted miniatures and terrain in front of me. They're beautifully, very detailed painted, very painted detailedly. But that does not come with the base game, so definitely check out all of the different options that they have, because there's a couple different things you can get depending on what you're interested in, as well as expansions and things like that. So Bloodwork is going to be a campaign game for 1 to 4 players where you're playing through as these different mercenaries that are very flavorful. For example, I have a Fey cleric here in front of us, Maeve, and you can see our player board. And also, just a thing to note, I do have part of the board covered here for you to be able to see the player board. So this is a bit more zoomed in than the gameplay is, whereas the gameplay you have it zoomed out and you can see more of the player boards in play. And I also, over here, we do have 2 different types of regular enemies on the board, but I only have one showing, whereas the health trackers for the other one is right over here. So there's just a couple things adjusted for you to be able to see everything that the game offers. Now, as I said, Bloodwork is going to be a cooperative game where you are really developing out these different characters. They have very unique abilities that I'm going to get into the combat system and everything like that, but it's a very tight action selection system where you can do 3 actions per turn, and you can choose to move, attack, and perhaps do a special move if you have that available and you have the things you need to pay for it depending on what you're playing as. So that may sound a little bit elusive. I'm going to dive right into it so you can see, because I do think a lot of the game is very intuitive, and I do feel that this is one of those games that there are a lot of keywords and things like that based on the characters that you're playing, but it's not overwhelming and it does feel intuitive. So depending on who you're playing, you actually feel excited having these different things that you have available and how you're able to pivot to the different things that are happening within the scenario, because you're perhaps able to knock things back or you're able to heal other players. So depending on what you're able to do, it does feel intuitive to the character that you're playing. Now, just to give more of a general overview before we look more at our player, as I said, this is the board, and normally this would not be covered, where there perhaps may be more terrain over here, and you can see that we have a bunch of miniatures that are engaged in combat. So over here is the boss for this particular scenario that players are trying to also take out, and we have a player over here which is going to be the more melee type character. We have an archer over here, we have a spellcaster over here, but over here Maeve is going to be our Fey cleric, and then we have all of our enemies over here with the 3 different goblin wreckers, and then we also have some goblin stickers which are going to be the archers over here. So when the game starts, these are all set up in a particular spot, and you can put your characters in specific areas where you can choose who starts where, but they all start in specific predetermined areas, and then you'll have certain conditions to meet. Now, this over here is going to be the boss's card as well, so you can see they have quite a bit more hit points. They have their stats down here where they're going to be a lot stronger, but they also are going to potentially provide something. So here you can see that for the players to be able to acquire this, they would have to kill the leader before 4 grunts have been killed. So if they were able to accomplish that, they would be able to add this to continue on throughout the campaign, as well as things like gold that they're going to be able to collect to spend later. So that's going to be extremely important, because this game is very, very tight, and depending on the things that you have, that really adjusts how strong you are at different things. So I am going to go through this character and what their different things are, but depending on what you're able to gain, especially as you can see, we are currently missing armor in our head, arms, and legs. So depending on what you're able to build up from the things you're able to scrounge from the board and the scenarios, as well as the loot that you'll get from the loot table at the end of the scenario, depending on what you were able to accomplish, it can be very, very important. Now, finally, you can see these boards over here, and these are holding different goals that players are trying to do. So they're going to get achievements depending on if they're able to accomplish them or not, but depending on your character, you're going to have certain things you want to do. For example, Maeve here wants to heal other characters. Alright, so next I'm going to go over our character and what a turn might look like, and a lot of this is going to be the rules that are based on the scenario and the actual gameplay for you to see if you'd enjoy spending a lot of time with Bloodwork. But just know that there are a lot of stats that really matter too, and everything we're doing is because of those stats that we have. So this is something else that you'll be able to grow and build out throughout the game, but that's not something I'm super going to touch on with this character build. So as you can see, what I'm referencing here are these stats here, such as our might, agility, wit, faith, and luck, and those are just going to determine certain things. But we do have things such as our max health, which is 20, our speed, which is 6, which is how far we're going to be moving. We have our gambit, which is something we're able to use once per scenario to be able to move around. Oops, sorry tree, you should be planted. And then we also have our resilience and cheat death, which are things that are going to help us, as you can imagine, if we were going to die, where this is an 8+, you would roll. If you had at least 3 health, when you would be brought to 1 health, you would roll, and that's a 10, which is fantastic, so we would be brought back to health with 1 life. But that is getting far ahead of ourselves. Again, before I go over the actions, I'm just going to do a little bit more of the player board here, but you can see that we have armor that is going to add to our body, but we also have protection 1, which is our inherent armor. We also have thorns, which is something that's going to happen if we're attacked in melee. We're going to be able to do damage back to the enemy. This is where we are tracking our health, and this is our mana tracker. So players are going to have different trackers depending on what type of character they are. This one has mana, but you might have things such as focus or fury depending on your character. But Maeve here is a mana user. So they are going to have 3 actions available to them on their turn, and 1 is going to be able to move. So if they did want to, they would be able to move up to 4 on their turn. But first, before our turn starts, we are going to gain that 2 mana. So that's determined by our character card here, where at the start of the scenario, we start with 2, and then we will also gain 2 every round. So we'll bump that up to 2. We also have knockdown resist +1, the thorns, which I talked about, and we have a free action, which does not count toward any of our 3 actions we have available, and we're going to be able to heal an ally for 2 anywhere, which is great. It's range X, so that is anywhere, so we'd be able to heal people perhaps if they needed it. The second action available is going to be to attack. So you can see where we are currently within melee range, within 1 range, which is what our sword currently needs to attack these goblin wreckers. So we'll choose to attack this red one over here. And this is our attack rate, which is 3, meaning that we are going to be rolling 3 d10s to attack. And our accuracy is a 7+, meaning that we are going to be successfully hitting them on a 7+. However, our crit chance is a 9+ because of this sword here. So we are actually able to crit on a 9+, which is fantastic for us, whereas usually players need to roll a 10. And then we also have the offense is 3, meaning that for each success, we're going to be able to do 3 damage to this guy. There's going to be a little bit of calculations there, but the base calculation for that is going to be 3. So here we will roll our 3 dice, and oh my goodness, you guys, we have a 9, a 9, and a 1. So on that 9+, we are critting. This is great to be able to show you this, but just for the sake of the example, I am going to change this to look like this. We're going to make it a little bit worse for ourselves. So now looking here, something that players are able to do if you do not hit your accuracy, you are able to add up dice. So where we have a 6 and a 4, that does equal 10, which we are able to roll over to a success. Now, if this was a 6, a 3, and a 1, we would be able to use all 3 of our dice to get at least 1 success, but that's how you're able to mitigate your rolls a little bit. So we'll pretend that we have 1 normal success here, as well as our 1 crit. So our offense is going to be 3 plus 3, but in the event of a crit, you're going to draw one of these cards here. Now, you're also drawing these when you do a regular attack, which I'll do next time because we happened to crit, but I will show you this, which is going to be the blood cards. So we're going to flip this over here, and we're adding 3 damage because it was a crit, which is what this center row is for. So when you crit, you are able to hit them where they're weakest. So taking a look at this card here, they have the least amount of protection in their head, which is a 1. So we're able to do 3 damage plus 3 damage plus 3 damage, which is 9, minus the 1 for their shield in their head, meaning that they're going to take a total of 8 damage. Now, this is the red one, and he has 9 health, which is insane, so we are going to drop him down to 1, and that's how our first attack would go. So I am just going to move this off to the side, move this over here, and then I'm going to have us proceed with this special. So we have a special which is called Twirling Attack, and we can attack the target and up to 2 additional adjacent enemies. So that is going to cost us 4 of our mana. That's all of our mana. We're going to spend it. And now we're going to be able to attack not only the red wrecker, but the blue wrecker as well. Now we're doing the same exact type of attack. That actually would have been great if we had the 2 crits at this time. But we're going to roll again for this attack. And this was nowhere near as good. So you can see we got a 5, a 3, and a 1, but thank goodness we are able to add those together for at least 1 success. So we're able to add both of these together to have it be at least an offense of 3, but where we are not critting, we are going to determine where we are hitting them. So we will flip this card over here, and we are hitting them in the head, and we're actually inflicting defense down. So that's really good for us, but if we were to hit them, let's hit them somewhere that's a little bit not as great for us. Here we go. So this is the arms, where we're able to hit them in the arms and inflict disarm. So their arms are protected by 2, meaning that we're only doing 1 damage to each of them, which luckily is enough to take out this red one because he was only at 1 health. But the blue one is going to take 1 damage, leaving him at 1, but he is disarmed. Now, that was a very brief example of what the mercenary combat is going to look like, and I'm going to show you the pace of play of how the runs are going to go next so that you can see when the monsters will be fighting and attacking you as well. But as I said, I do highly suggest checking out the gameplay because this is just the cleric and something that they're able to do. There are ranged attackers that can attack from range both by arrows or by magic, and you also have people that are just able to come up and do a whole lot of damage. So between the specials you have available, all of the different weapons that these characters are using, and the decisions that you're making, you're really able to change this. For example, you're able to knock the different enemies back, perhaps inflicting additional damage on them if you're able to slam them into a wall or into each other, which can be really funny, or you're able to heal other people as well. So not everything has to be an attack. Some of your actions that you're going to have available are going to be helping other players as well, perhaps making them a little bit quicker, and players are also going to be interacting with things on the board as well. So as I said, there is the gold out, and players are going to be able to try to pick up the gold on top of it. Now, the order every round is going to be determined by these fate cards, which you are going to draw a new one every round to see when everyone is acting. So just to take a look here, you can see by the different symbols whether it's going to be the enemies or the leader working first. So in this example, the leader, which is Gigarat, is the unhinged. He's going to be working first, where he is going to, within range X, which is anywhere, attack each enemy with attack rate -2 and overpower +3. So what that means is attack rate is how many dice you are rolling. So he would be rolling 2 less dice. However, he would have overpower +3, meaning that any damage that he does, he's automatically adding 3 to that result as well. So you can see where he is attacking for quite a lot, especially where his range is everywhere, and he's attacking each enemy. So this would be him attacking all 4 of the mercenaries, but then this banner showing here means that the mercenaries would then have their turn. Then after that, any of the other enemies would go under Do I Have Everything, regroup, and heal for 7. So that's one where they're a little bit more passive, regrouping and healing. But to take a look at another fate card, here we have Gigarat would be going first again. If no allies, discard and draw again. So this is one where he wouldn't actually be doing anything, which is great for the mercenaries as long as there are some allies on the board. If you chose to kill all of his allies first, he would just discard this and draw again, but otherwise you'd be able to basically have him not have a turn that round. Everyone would be able to take a turn, and then the other enemies would do Traumatized Assault. Attack closest enemies with speed +2 and overpower +3. So they'd be able to get them to them a little bit quicker, and that overpower +3 again is doing additional damage as long as they were able to hit. So when the enemies are attacking, they are rolling dice just like the mercenaries are, but luckily they are not able to crit. Now they will still draw one of these cards to see where they attack. For example, they would attack perhaps in the legs, and you would also be able to use your armor against it. So again, you have your inherent protection, and if they do hit somewhere that you have protected, for example this one is the body, you would have additional protection against that as well. Now, just because the two examples I showed you did have that same exact order, you can see that that is something you can kind of hope for, but that is not always the case, where sometimes things can really change for you and the enemies perhaps might go twice in a row. So you really have to be very strategic and planning things out, because these enemies are very strong and they can be quite unforgiving, where especially when they are overpowering and doing additional damage, depending on the players that are getting attacked, it could be devastating. For example, some of our magic casters over here that don't have that strong of a body might get taken out pretty quickly, but you might have some that are able to tank with 35 health over here and take a lot of damage for the team. Now, before we go, just to give you a sense of everything that you are able to get throughout the game, and again, you cannot get everything here. It's actually very tricky for you to get gold, both from the loot table at the end of the scenario and what you were able to get in the different scenarios that have things that you're able to gain, as well as some direct items, but it can all be very, very tricky for you to be able to get as a team. But just to give you an idea here, we have boots that give you resistance from getting knocked back. We have a breastplate for additional armor. Here we have a copper sword, which is going to be a bit better. We have more boots, but then you have things such as a torch. We have a copper spear, more shields for everybody, better arrows. So as you play throughout the game, you are able to upgrade more and more. Bloodwork is a game that I cannot stress enough has so much in it. There's so much strategy within the different battles that you're playing, with all of the different keywords that you're able to develop for your character and work with, especially the special actions that you're going to be able to work toward as well. It can make you feel very, very cool, and especially very important to be part of the team, because all of them also behave very, very differently, and it's all very needed, such as healing, but being able to deal a lot of damage or being able to move quickly and support other characters. It's all very needed, and this is a game where you are building out a lot of your character. You're going to be able to customize these different things that you're enjoying, and it's going to give you that sense of progression where you start off with not a lot, but pretty quickly you're going to be able to have these weapons and armor that is super, super useful to you and your team. Now, as I said, these enemies are quite unforgiving and they're very, very strong, so it definitely does provide a lot of a challenge where not only are you trying to get through the different scenarios, but you have things such as this item that I noted where you're trying to meet certain things for that as well, and you're trying to get these achievements. So there's so much that the game is guiding you toward that are also difficult things to achieve. So it's going to give you that sense of accomplishment, and I think it also gives you a very strong sense of co-op, because you really have to work together with everyone to make the best decisions for the team to see what you're able to do. And where the stakes are so high, it really does matter what you're doing, so you want to make sure you're really helping everyone to the best of your ability. Now, again, there's so much to this game where there's also the terrain where you're able to block line of sight from ranged people, and you're also able to climb up onto terrain as well. So if you are someone who's able to attack from range, that's something that you're able to use to your advantage. And this is only the first scenario, so there are also so many different configurations of what you're going to be engaging with that, as I said, I definitely suggest checking out the game found link down below just to see everything that they have planned from the base campaign as well as expansions on top of that. And if you'd like to see exactly how this game plays, there is a gameplay on the channel either now or to be soon very quickly in the future, so you can see how that goes and plays out. I've been Professor Meg. Thank you all for watching the Board Game Co channel. This has been a preview of Bloodwork by iDemoGames, and I will see you all next time. Bye!